So today's focus is on what are the best historical usage reports available in LAMUM. And as you already know, there's hundreds of ways of looking at usage history. So I thought this would be a useful discussion on which reports are give you the most value. So let's start by looking at the difference between current checkout reports and historical usage reports. Current checkout reports are providing real-time data from most of your FlexLM licenses, Reprise RLM, LMX, DSLS. Those are the license manager types that can collect real-time data. And so we can show you what's currently checked out, who has licenses checked out and for how long. And this is useful a way of catching hoarders, somebody that's hanging on to a license when they shouldn't be, and it can also show you where you have multiple licenses checked out, perhaps by the same person. In 9.3, there is a new restricted view, 8182 restricted, which basically has access to the current reports, which would be your overview, your gas gauges, and your detail. But that's all. We've added that in 9.3. So if you want to give that URL out, the restricted view, they will have access to the current checkout data. Today we're going to focus on historical usage reports, which provide a way of looking at patterns of checkouts and usage over time. It can also provide a list of the users of a particular software feature or tool in a given period of time, and how much that user used the license, and how close are you to capacity. If you want to know that, like, are you running 50% of capacity, 20%? And of course, your usage is always going up or down. So you'll be able to track, what's the maximum usage over a given period of time, considering what your capacity is. And then you can also look at usage trends over a period of time. This would be maybe 6 months, 180 days, 365, over extended periods of time. You will be able to look at the averages line and see if you're trending up or down or pretty stable. We'll talk a little more about that in a minute. Also, historical usage reports are useful if you need to do chargebacks or allocation reports to see how much people are using a particular tool or groups are using a particular tool. So as we go through this, I'm going to show you a set of reports. We'll go through how the report is created, what does it mean, and then I'll go live and show you what that looks like live in most cases. First thing I thought it would be useful to do is discuss the differences between the reports on the Home tab and the reports under the History tab. Very simply, the Home tab provides the most commonly used historical usage reports by tag. So you can see the usage graphs, the heat maps, the user details, group usage, concurrent use, denial, zero usage, and averages by tag. So if all you're looking for is history by tag, the Home tab is most useful to you. Under the History tab, we have more what we call comprehensive reports, which is across all the tags. So under the History tab is a comprehensive zero use report. So it shows you zero use across all of your tags. Same with the averages, the comprehensive averages. Under the History tab, there's a couple of additional reports. Combined feature, which allows you to see if you have the same tool running on multiple license servers, you can see that in one graph or one table. That's called the combined feature, and that's only under the History tab. Multiple features as well is under the History tab. That's if you want to see multiple features, same ported host, same tag, plotted on the same graph. And then we have these comprehensive reports across all the tags. So the main thing, in other words, some of these are available as comprehensive reports, and they're fairly large because they are across all your tags. And those are under the History tab. There's also reports under the Denials tab. If you are tracking denials, you can see denials by tag or you can see comprehensive denials across all the tags over here. And we'll talk more about the kind of reports you can see, the denial reports you can see. Same with groups. There's a groups tab, which allows you to see, in addition to group usage by tag, you can see group usage across all the tags. So that's kind of a summary. Again, this PowerPoint presentation will be posted up on our website if you want to come back and reference this. How do you get the report? So in LAMUM, there's two ways of getting, actually there's three ways. Interactive, you can go in through 8181 or 8182 and kind of browse around until you find the report that you want. But most often you're going to set up some of these reports as on-demand reports, such as feature usage graphs by, say, a week or a month. That could be an on-demand report. On-demand basically is you have a hyperlink, you click on it, it brings up the report, which with the most common data in it. So on-demand reports are typically your feature usage graphs, your heat maps, user details, concurrent use, and averages. So these are good reports to put into a favorite, either in your browser or into the favorites tab or into a user dashboard, assuming you know what that is. For batch, these are the bigger reports, the more routine reports that you're going to want regularly, like once a week, once a month, that kind of thing. You need to look at these reports and figure out what's the best time interval, and then how do you want it delivered. So your feature graphs can certainly be batched up. Maybe a monthly usage graph or a quarterly usage graph can be put together under your batch as a batch report, but you can have your shorter term reports on demand. User details would be a good batch report. Who used the product in the last month or the last quarter, and how much did they use it? Group usage, same way. If you need to do allocations of usage by groups, and you might want to do that once a month or once a quarter, or what you can batch, that would be a good batch report. Concurrent use clearly is a report that's you're going to want to have monthly or quarterly. Denials, same way. I'm recommending denials as a batch report, not on demand, because it's not real time, it's historical, and sometimes these denial reports can get fairly large depending upon what options you choose. Same with zero use. Zero use reports can be quite large. And that would be best set up as a batch routine. General rule is this: if your reports take longer than 15 seconds to create, I would set it up as a batch report, because if you on demand, you click on a hyperlink, you want that report to come up within 15 seconds. That's just a general rule. By the way, you'll see some little notes at the bottom of certain slides that say BP. That's best practices. So these are sort of recommendations from us on what we consider to be best practices. So general rule, if it's going to take more than 15 seconds to generate the report, set it up as a batch. Otherwise, you can set it up as on demand. Let's look now at some specific reports. Feature usage graph, most common report people use for looking at usage history. And this report is available by tag for any given feature for any time period. It's dynamic. I'll show you this in a minute. You can turn off unneeded graph elements if you don't want to see them. And this usage graph can be saved as a JPEG image if you want to put it into a report or send it to somebody. There's also the multiple features graph, which is basically the same tag, same ported host. You can select up to 6 features at that tag and have that plotted together in the same graph. That's called the multiple feature report, and that's the one right here that we were talking about. And then lastly, in 9.3, you can have multi-view graph sets. So these are sets of graphs, up to 8 graphs for a given tag. That's available only as a batch report. So let's go look at, I'm going to jump out of the PowerPoint and go live now and just create. So here's our home tab, and all of these graphs are by tag. So we're going to go to the history graph. Let's just pick NX and pick a feature, And so this is a very common graph that you're going to see. And it shows several things. The capacities, this line up here, the actual is this, and then the average is this light colored line across the bottom. And any of these you can turn off. So I can turn off whatever features I don't want to see. I'm turning off the averages line now. I can turn off the capacity line if I don't want that visible. And again, you can save this as a JPEG image just by clicking on download. That'll just save this graph as a JPEG. You can do with what you want. You can create a batch report by clicking on that right there. Other things you can do here, of course, this defaults to 7 days, and you can change it to 39, any of these time periods you want. But when you start getting out here 30, 90, 180 days, the graph's going to get really, really crowded and busy, and it may not be practical unless you turn off certain things. So, I mean, if I went out here and did a 180-day graph, it's just going to be a complete mess, a blue mess across there, unless you turn off certain things. And then you can turn on and turn off different things over here if you want to. These are the pie charts down below. You can have these on or off if you want. And of course, what comes with the history graph is a pie chart of your top 10 users for this time period. One of them is based on total duration of checkout, and the other is based on number of checkouts. So if you're looking to see whether you have power users or there's certain engineers that seem to be dominating, these reports might be useful. And again, either of these can be downloaded as a JPEG or saved as a batch report just by clicking on those buttons there. So let's see, what else did I want to say about, multiple feature graph. So this is your usage graph by tag, right? We just came off of the home tab. That's where we were. So that's this column, this graph for this tag. Up here under history, we have a couple of other graphs that you might be interested in, the multiple feature graph. And again, you pick a tag and you have all these features at a given tag, and you can just select up to 6 of these features and plot that feature usage on those 6 together for a given time period. And in my demo here, and then you also have the ability to do a combined graph, which gives you the totals off of all of those. I don't know why I can't see the whole thing here. There we go. There's a submit button down there. So, I mean, you submit it and you get another graph, which should have, I don't have usage on these other features here, but these are the features that I chose here in different colors. And it is possible to change the colors on these graphs if you don't like the colors that we use. Like, that's probably not really acceptable, but again, you can do up to 6 features per graph. So that's called the multiple feature graph. The other one that I mentioned was the multiple view graph, which is, if you go over here under batch, multiple view graph, and you click on a particular feature, it's going to generate a set of graphs for that feature for that time period. So you can have up to 8 different graphs for the same. Again, this is 9.3. And if you click up here, it gives you the list of the 8 different graphs, and you can turn off the ones maybe you don't want certain ones, or certain ones you want. You can change the time period that you want and submit that here, and then you can create a batch report out of that. So that's called the multiple view graph set. That's available in 9.3. Again, it's useful if you want to see a complete set of graphs on a given feature by week or by month or whatever. So hopefully you'll find that useful. I'll talk at the end, by the way, about what I think are the most useful graphs and tables in the tool. This is one of them. All right, so with that said, let's go back over here to our presentation. So I just covered pretty much everything on this list regarding the feature graph. The next one is the user detail report. This is a table that you can get by tag and feature. Again, you get it off the home page, and it lets you understand what users have used this tool in a given period of time. And then there's also a user detail report by user. So you select a given user, selected engineer, and a given time period, and you can see everything that that engineer used in that time period. And you might need that for a performance appraisal, or an engineering manager might be interested in knowing what a given engineer has used, or you might need it for chargebacks by user. It depends on what you might need that for. I'll show you that in a minute. And it also gives you that individual's percent of total for that time period. So if you needed to do chargebacks, you can use the percent of total. And any of these tables, of course, can be exported to Excel. So let's go back over to our tool over here. And so we're looking at this column now, the user detail column. So if I go, let's go pick our NX tool again. And this is a list that happens to default to 7 days, but I can do 30, 90 days. And it gives me a list of everybody that's used this tool in the last, in this case, 7 days. And I can click on the column heading and sort it from the longest checkout to shortest. This also tells me how many checkouts that individual had, and it gives me the percentage of total over here. And any table, of course, can be exported to Excel. I can also create a batch report off of this if I like, or I can add this report to favorites. Favorites is a new tab available. I believe it's 9.3 or 2, maybe it was 9.2. There's a favorites tab. It basically allows you to do on demand. These are all on demand reports. You can just click on a link and see the report on demand. It's the same as a favorite in your browser, except it's a favorite in LAMUM. So going back to the table again, let's just talk about what's in there. I must have skipped over heat maps here, but the user detail report is very useful if you need to see who used a given tool in a specific period of time. Let me go back over here to my, I skipped over to heat maps. I apologize for that. So what are the heat maps? Visualizing checkout behavior over a 24/7 period of time allows you to predict date and time when denials might be occurring. So you're going to see, where you're getting the most intense checkout activity, and you may or may not be getting denials at that day and time. We also have a heat map for denials, which will let you actually visualize the day and time when denials are occurring. This is a useful report or a graph for engineers. If you want to make that available to them, they can see, when is a license going to be mostly available, and what's the potential for a denial. This is useful if you have engineers in multiple time zones, i.e. WAN global licenses. It's also useful for short periods of time, less than a month. So you wouldn't want to do a heat map for more than a month. It gets too filled out, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So last 7 days is probably the most common. And then, of course, this can be saved as a JPEG. So let me go back now to our home, and let's look at the heat map for a tool, MATLAB. And so you can see what this is showing is this is the days of the week, and these are the 24 hours in a day. And the darkest red, which almost looks black here, is the most intense checkout. So it's a way to visualize you're getting a lot of checkouts around this time, and you want to kind of stay away from that. Doesn't necessarily mean you're getting denials, but that's a useful way to look at it. And that fades to light red, yellow, and blue is no checkout. So again, you can show people that you got a lot of excess capacity outside of, this heat map here, where you're not using the licenses at all, and you're paying for them 24/7, but you're only getting a section of this where you're actually using the licenses. But again, this is a very useful way of looking at checkouts. We do the same thing for denials. I just have the same thing. It's 24/7, and this is just showing the time of day and the day of the week when you're getting denials. It might be useful again for an engineer. Take a look at this and stay away from the times when denials are occurring. Again, these are all historical reports, and again, I think it's useful to look at these reports on a 7-day basis or a 30-day basis for the most part. So let's see what else. I think I've talked about everything. Again, you can save that heat map as a JPEG if you want, useful for short periods of time. The user detail report, we just covered that out of order, but I think everybody got the general idea. It's useful if you need to see who's using the tool for how long, any given period of time, and if you need to allocate the cost for that back by engineer, this would be a good report to do that. The other type of report you can do is group usage. As you know, with LAMUM, you can create groups and see usage by group. So this is a table of usage by groups, this particular report. There is a graph of usage by group. If you want to see feature usage by group in a graph form, you can do that. It's by tag for a given feature. There is a group detail report, which basically over on the Groups tab, you would select the group and see everything that that group used in a given period of time. So it would show usage by all engineers in that group in a selected period of time, along with the percentage of total. So this is useful if you need to allocate cost or do chargeback of tool cost by group. And again, this is a table, so it can be exported to Excel. So if I jump back over here and do a group, again, by tag, so let's go look at the cost of MATLAB, or the usage, I'm sorry, of MATLAB by group. So this is MATLAB, and it's showing me these are all my groups and how much each group used MATLAB in this time period. Of course, we said last 7 days, but it does give you the actual 7-day period that we're covering here. It shows you how many checkouts that group had, and then the percentage of total. So I would suggest using the percentage of total here to allocate the costs if you had to. In 9.3.1, we'll actually have essentially a box. You can put the dollar value in. How much is MATLAB for the last 7 days? Total cost. You put that in the box, and it'll generate the dollar values over here. And of course, you can always dump this table out to Excel. You can create a batch report, or you can add it to your favorites tab if you like this type of report. Again, usage by group. So again, lots of ways of looking at usage. Usage feature by, this is a feature at a tag over a given time period. This one is your heat map of when the checkouts are occurring or when the denials are occurring visually. This is your user detail, and this is your group detail, essentially. So groups can be created, if you recall, one of 3 ways. One is interactive. You can go in and just create a group name and then just click off the names of the people that belong to that group. You can always go in there and edit that and change the group definitions if you need to. The second way is to do it offline in an Excel spreadsheet. Basically, you create all your group identities offline in an Excel spreadsheet, save it, and then we just import it. And if you need to maintain it, you maintain it offline in the Excel spreadsheet, and that takes care, and just re-import it, and that'll update your groups. And the third way is using your Active Directory to create the groups. So assuming you're hooked up to Active Directory, you can go in there and select organization, department. There's 3 different, let's just go look real quick here. Groups by AD. So you can create it by organization, office, or department, some combination of the 3, give it a name, add a group, and it'll go to Active Directory and list everybody that meets those criteria. You can save those criteria, and then in 9.3.1, which is due out, say, January timeframe, that will include auto sync. So you won't have to go in there and regenerate the group again. Once you define it, it'll always stay current. It'll go back weekly and update itself based on the current Active Directory information. So if you do groups, these are the 3 ways you can create and maintain the groups. The next report that I want to talk about is your concurrent use graph. This is a really, really good report, particularly when you're coming up to renewal time. This report is available by tag and feature, meaning you can get to it on the Home tab, or and then you can see it 24/7, or Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And then you might say, well, when 24/7 is useful if your licensed users are all over multiple time zones, WAN, I call it WAN global users, or just multiple time zones. You're going to want to look at the concurrent use graph in the 24/7 mode. If your users are all in the same time zone, then it's probably more practical to look at the current use graph Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. This is an important distinction here. I would suggest that you really consider which of these graphs is better based on where the licensed users are. And again, these are the kind of reports that you're going to want to start looking at, a month, 2 months before your renewal date, because this is the one report that can kind of tell you how many licenses you need. There's a lot of reports that you're going to look at, but the concurrent use report for floating licenses is very important because you need to make a decision on how many concurrent licenses do you need. And so I highly encourage you to, if you aren't already using the concurrent use graphs, it determines how many floating licenses you need, the percentage of time. It allows you to see the percentage of time at each level of actual concurrent checkout. And I'll show you what that means in a minute. And that percentage number is very important down here to determine probability of denial. You may not realize it, but this concurrent use graph does give you a probability of denial factor, which again is important to know in your decision on how many licenses you need. And of course, this also will show you the maximum number of concurrent checkouts you've had in the last 7 days, 90 days, 180 days, whatever it is. And again, because it's a graph, you can save it as a JPEG. It can also be batched up, as we talked about before. So let's go look at concurrent use reports. And again, you have the option here of picking a tag. Let's just do this MATLAB one here. And so what this is showing me is that I own 15 licenses here. It does show me, this happens to be, again, 7 days. And this is the 24/7 concurrency graph. That's what's selected up here. I can also select Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And so it's the same information, but this is 24/7. This one is Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And the graphs will be different. So you're going to want to consult with both of them, again, depending upon where your users are. Are they all in the same time zone or in multiple time zones? So what you're looking at here, let me explain. So the x-axis is the number of licenses that you own, or I should say the number of licenses that have been used, because this could be that I own 20 licenses, but I never used more than 15. That's significant to know. In this example, we own 15 licenses. We did use 15, only 0.9% of the total. So these little numbers here add up to 100%. So this is the percentage of time at each concurrent level of concurrent use. So it's significant to know this number, because there's a rule in best practices that says you can get rid of up to 5%, that a 5% probability of denial is acceptable. And just kind of remember that a 5% probability of denial is acceptable. So if this was 20 licenses and I only used 15 max, I'm not going to get any denials, period. But if in this case I have 15 and I use 15, but only 0.9% of the time, that is very expensive to have that kind of availability. Depending upon the cost of each seat, each floating license, you're going to have to determine, what's an acceptable probability of denial? Do I get rid of this? Because now it's going to be 1.4% of probability. To get rid of that one, then that's going to keep adding up. So you can decide at what level you want to bet. In my opinion, you could probably get rid of four or five licenses just looking at this, because again, you want to get 5% is a good, reasonable probability of denial, but it's your call. But you should think about what's an acceptable probability of denial. Again, this would be useful if your engineers are in multiple time zones. If they're only in one time zone, then you're going to refer more to this. And so if looking at this one, we own 15 licenses, 15 in the Monday through Friday 8 to 5 time frame. We actually used 8.4% of the time. My guess is you actually may need more licenses, not less. looking at this, because 8.4, that's your probability of denial Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So again, these concurrency reports are very important. I would highly encourage you to set up batch reports for these. Again, you can set it up either way, with or without the 24/7, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. There's also another one that's accumulated. You can also do a custom time concurrency graph here if you want to skew the time frames. You know, maybe you want to do it Monday through Friday, but you only want it in this time period here, just so you can see what that graph looks like. You know, it changes based on Monday through Friday, 2 a.m. to 8 p.m. So again, if you are working in multiple time zones and you want to skew these concurrency graphs, you can do that. Again, strongly, highly recommend use of these concurrency graphs. Very important, particularly when you're coming up to renewal. All right, so I was a little long-winded on the concurrency use stuff, but it's very, very important. Denials, so you can get FlexLM denials in our system, or you can get DSLS denials. The denial data comes from the Flex debug logs. It doesn't come through an LM stat. You have to go into the Flex debug logs to see the denial data, and we have a parser for that if you don't have that set up, and each tag has its own Flex debug log. So if you want to collect denials, you're going to have to set up a link to the debug log for each tag, and have that parsed daily or every other day or every week, whatever time period you select, and that pulls in the latest denial data. We need unobstructed access to that debug log, because when you're going to put it in, you know, you might be able to get to it easily, but if your IT department has firewalls or permission issues, you know, then you won't be able to get to it. You're going to have to get that fixed. We need unobstructed access to that Flex debug log. And the Flex debug log needs to be rewrite set too. There is an app note up on our website. If you want to set up denial tracking, look at the FlexLM denial setup app note on our website under resources. We also can set up, we have denial tracking for DSLS. It's a separate app note. So there's a lot of ways of looking at denials. We have the denials overview, which is across all the tags, and you can filter it on denial code. Let me just jump over there so you can see what I'm talking about. So denials overview. So this is all denials across all of the different tags. I'm collecting denials on MATLAB and NX on these tags. And so I have the ability to see details if I want to come down here to, let's say, this NX here. And it shows me the number of denials each month. And we've parsed this file quite often. You can see it looks like once a month, you can see how many denials are occurring. And if I wanted to drill in on, say, October, you know, I can drill in and see denials every day. And then I can drill in until I see the actual, oh, this one denial, this person got denied. And then this error code here is kind of important, because you're going to get in the file, there'll be false denials, and the 4000 category error codes are true denials. They occurred because you ran out of licenses. And so we do track all the error codes, but you can filter just on that. I mean, if I go back and let's see if I've got one that's, I think I have to go back to a different, maybe it's this one right here. And just drill in here, you can see multiple error codes. Well, not multiple error codes, but there's 6 people that got denied. It shows how many times they got denied. And then the machine they got denied on, and then the error code. And then again, these are all true denials, but I could filter on that if I wanted to. So that's one thing you can do with these denial reports. If I go back to the overview again, I mean, I can create heat maps for each tag. I can create a graph for each tag, and depends on how you want to see the denial data, but that's all in there if you want to see it. You can also see denials by tag, user denial reports. This is a heat map. You got to select the tag anyway, and it details. This is denials by a particular user. So you know, pick a tag, and it's going to give me a list of everybody that got denied on that feature, and this happens to be the last 365 days. But I can change that to whatever I want, last 30 days, for instance. So you can play around with the denials, but again, in order to get denials, you need to have your denial parser set up, which requires you, if you don't recall, in order to get to the Flex debug log, you have to have a path set in. This is under line item edit. You need to have the path to the debug log here, and then you need to have your parser set up, which is over here. We're going to talk more about denials at our next training session in 2 weeks. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on how to set up Flex denials. But the bottom line is, if you want to do denials, you need to have the debug logs available. Then you have your graphs, denials by users, so forth and so on. And then this is kind of what I was just saying. A 5% probability of denial is acceptable, but you need to decide in your company what is an acceptable denial rate, and then use that concurrency graph report to show you, what your denial probability is. So the next report I want to talk about is zero use. So we always seem to focus on what's being used and how they're using it, and that kind of thing, which is important. But it's also important to know what's not being used, and that's a zero use report. And that's reports available by a tag, or it's comprehensive across all tags. Basically, it's showing you what features have not been checked out in a given time period. And what you're going to do is you're going to look for features in that list that cost money. Because there's going to be a lot of features in there that don't cost money. They're utilities or whatever, and that's fine. So just skip over that. But if you see something in there that you're paying for and nobody's using it, you should ask yourself, do you need it? If not, get rid of it. Save some money. Save your company some money. At least you want to let the engineering manager know that, hey, that particular feature tool is not being used. Do you want to do some training on it? If not, you can get rid of it. So again, this is a report that you're going to want to look at 30 days before renewal. Very important. Do engineers need training? So you might want to copy the engineering manager on the report. It's a table, so you can export it to Excel, create batch reports, all that stuff from it. This makes a great monthly or quarterly batch report. That's my recommendation, best practices. And again, how you get the zero use report is you go to home, and then there's the zero use by tag. Again, this is by tag, so I just click on this for a given tag, and it'll give me a list of all the features not used in a given time period. So you, in the last 37 days, 30 days, whatever time period, click submit, creates a table of all the features not used in that time period. And again, that can be saved as a batch report, as a favorite in the favorites tab, however you want to set that up. There's also a combined comprehensive zero use report. It's the same thing, but it's a cross tag. So it's going to be zero use across all the tags. I would recommend, best practices, do the comprehensive zero use report and set it up maybe monthly. Just do that, run it, and then save it as you don't see anything there now, but once you generate the report the first time, you'll see create batch report here, and just set that up so that you get that report automatically first calendar day of every month for the previous 30 days. And I think that's a very useful historical usage report. Highly recommended. There's the averages report. This is also a very, very good report if you haven't already used it. So this is available for all used features, so it does not show you the unused features, but for all used features at a given tag. And there is a comprehensive version, again, across all tags. It shows you several things. One is the total usage time for that time period that you've selected for that feature. It shows you the average checkout time. Average checkout time is very useful if you're going to set up long checkout alerts. And we're going to talk about long checkout alerts at our next session. But you need to know what's a reasonable amount of time to have a license checked out. So the average checkout time from the averages report is very useful. Average number of concurrent users, again, this might be useful information when you're trying to determine how many licenses do you need. I would rely more on the concurrent use reports than this for that. And then it also shows you the number of times at max. And this makes a great, this generates very fast. So it's a great 7-day on-demand report. Put it in your favorites. Or if you're going to do averages over 30 days, 90 days, whatever, do that in batch because it's going to take long time to create. And remember, the rule is if it takes longer than 15 seconds, make it a batch report, not an on-demand report. So let's go look at averages. Again, the averages column is here by tag. So let's go look at this NX. We'll do a quick NX for 7 days. Whoops. And so I have actually two features used, not many on that tag. So this gives me a list of the features that were used in this last 7 days at that tag. And then this is the total usage time here. And again, you can sort it by clicking on the column heading. This is the average checkout time. Very useful information to know, oh, NX is checked out on average 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 second. That's kind of odd. And then the average number of concurrent users is 6.3. And we actually hit capacity 18 times. So this has got a lot of really good, useful information on the tools that have been used in the period that you selected. If you click on this link, somebody's asking, well, what happens if you click on that link? It's just going to bring up the concurrent use report for that. So this says you hit max 18 times. And again, that might be useful to know. And we own 15 licenses currently of that tool. So that's the averages report, one of the best reports that we have, I think. I mean, there's a lot of really good reports. Averages report is a very good one. And then we have the combined feature report, which is only required if you have the same tool on multiple license servers. Basically, let's say you've got Product X running on 3 different license servers. This allows you to plot all 3 servers of Product X on the same graph, and it comes with a total too. There is a total line, so you can see what the combined total is across all 3 servers. Very, very useful information if you have the same tool running on multiple license servers. We also do the same thing as a table. So the graph is useful as just to see what the checkout load looks like, but the detail is in the table. So if you want to see the combined feature table, it gives you all the user information as well. And in the graph, the colors can be altered, so you can change the colors if you don't like the colors that we choose. And you can have up to 5 servers. So if you have up to 5 license servers with the same tool, you can plot all 5. We are moving that to 7 in 9.3.1. So if you have that many servers, you can plot all 7 on the same graph if you want. This is a good on-demand report or batch report, depending upon the time period that you choose. Clearly, if you're doing the table, this combined feature table, that takes a while to generate, so you're going to want to do that as a batch report. But the graphs can certainly be done as an on-demand report. Multiple feature report, again, that's up to 6 features, same tag, plotted together in the same graph for a given time period. And again, it lets you kind of view how the features are used. Are they used, together concurrently? And you can see correlation of use of different features. Again, you have the ability to change colors in here if you want. And there is a table version of this as well. So you've got the graph for just seeing, the usage numbers. And then if you want to see all the detail across those different features, you have a table version of that. I might as well show you what that looks like. So that's up here under the history graph. You got the multiple features graph, you got the multiple features table. And again, you pick a feature, you check off, I think I might have shown you this earlier, you check off certain features and it shows all those features in the same graph, along with a total. You can get a total line there as well. And then the other one was the table. So that's just a table version of multiple feature graph. Again, up to 6 features per report combined together in the same report. Not sure if that's useful or not. Some people may really find that important. The last one I already showed you is the multiple feature report. Not multiple feature, the multiple graph set. Okay, this is 9.3, and you can do this batch only, and it's up to 8 graphs per set per tag. I showed you that a minute ago. I went up here and to the batch report, multiple feature graph. Oops, pick a tag, and you can see a complete set of graphs. And this is a very good batch report. You need to decide on what graphs you want to see together in this set. So figure this is a set, and you can have up to 8 graphs in the same set, generated weekly or monthly, whatever period of time you want. So I'll go back over here to our kind of rushing along here. We still got a lot to cover here. Wonder if I talked about this other one here. Whoops. Yeah, okay, so that's the multiple graph set. And then you have features by tag. I'm not sure if you were even aware of this particular report. This is also a very good batch report, and it's batch only. And if I go over here, you can select features by tag graphs or features by tag tables. And again, this is a monthly report. So right here under batch, you've got feature usage by tag table, feature usage by tag graph. So let's say we want to do graphs. So here is where you're going to select a given tag. Let's say I want to do this NX demo. And so these are all the features at that. And I can select multiple ones here if I want. Shift. Pick whatever, ones you want, and it'll generate a complete set of reports for those features at a given tag, whatever time period, 30 days or whatever. And again, as a batch report, you can dump it into a folder, or you can dump it out as email. If you're going to put it into a folder, just keep in mind you need to have those folders set up in advance. And so if it's a folder, you're going to put the path to the folder. If it's an email, you're going to put an email address. And you can have multiple email addresses in there. I believe 9.3 allows you to do multiple email addresses. So that's your feature. Again, feature usage by tag, feature usage by graph. Feature usage by tag table, feature usage by tag graph. It's a set of reports. Makes it kind of easy for you, if you're trying to set up reports that you can use monthly. I would recommend this as a monthly batch report. And you need to decide, do you want to see that as graphs or as tables? Again, the difference is the detail. Graphs give you all the usage data, counts of checkouts, whereas tables gives you all the detail, the people that used it and all that stuff. So if you haven't run these reports, I would suggest that you turn them on. They're very, very useful reports. And it sounds like everything I'm talking about is useful, and they all are, in their own way. So again, any of these reports that I've been talking about here can be delivered interactively. You can go in through 8181 or 8182 and find the report that you want. The second way is on demand, either through favorites, which you're going to do is you're going to create the report one time, save the URL as a favorite in your browser or as a favorite in the favorites tab here. There's this favorites tab. You can have all of these set up in advance that are just available, like current checkouts. I just click on the link and it gives me the detail. So that's just like having a favorite in your browser, but it's a favorite in the product. We added that, I believe, in 9.2, I believe. So then we have the dashboard. The dashboard is just an line thing. You save the URL as a hyperlink, put it into a wiki document or a SharePoint document. There's a document up on our website that explains how to set up dashboards. Just go to tmeda.com, resources, and search for dashboards, and it'll tell you how you create dashboards. But basically, they're on-demand reports set up in some kind of a medium offline, and you can have dashboards for engineers, you can have dashboards for managers. There's no limit. So again, these are good for on-demand reports. And then lastly, if they're big reports or long running time reports, you want to set those up as batch, which can be delivered email or folders. Again, folders need to be set up in advance. I already talked about reports that take longer than 15 seconds should be set up as batch. I already talked about this. So I only point out that batch is weekly. Last 7 days arrives Monday mornings. It's done in the middle of the night, and they're going to be in your inbox, or they're going to be in that folder when you get to work on Monday morning. Monthly is last 30 days. So we talk about weekly, but it's the last 7 days for weekly. It's the last 30 days for monthly. It's the last 90 days for quarterly. And the monthly reports arrive the first day of the calendar month. Quarterly arrives the first day of the calendar quarter, and so forth. So my recommendation is meet with management and show all the reports that are available and explain what they mean. Let them choose the reports that they want and the time periods that they want. Do they want it weekly, monthly, quarterly? And then choose a delivery method. Do you want it emailed to you, or do you want us to just put it into a folder? And then create a list, because you're going to get different people want different things. So if I were you, have this meeting with management, show them everything that's possible, and then keep a list of who wants what, when, and how. And then you can go back and create those batch reports and give them, the whatever. They don't really need to give them anything. It's going to show up in a folder, or it's going to show up in their email. But the thing you need to realize, each manager is going to have different needs. And they might like, one might like the heat map, who knows, We talked about that. So in summary, I'm trying to, I sat down here when I did this and I tried to, say, well, what are the best on-demand reports? And, they're all really good. But all the current checkout reports are very, very important and useful to engineers and management, probably more so to the engineers than they are to the management. And then you have the table overview. That's one way of looking at current checkouts. But that table can get very big, and people that use the table need to understand you can filter. There's a filtering box at the top. They can use that filtering box to get to what they want. The gas gauges are probably even more useful because you can create hyperlinks that will take you to a specific set of gas gauges. Maybe you're only interested in the MATLAB stuff, so you can create a gas gauge display that is just for MATLAB, and you can give that out. And then the details are useful if you want people to see who's using the product, how long have they had it checked out for, and that's sort of self-policing. So people are not going to want to show that they've had it checked out for extended periods of time. And the other reason you would use the checkout details if you want to be able to remove licenses. So, are all the current checkout reports important? Yes, absolutely. And don't forget, now we have the current checkout 8182 restricted view. In 9.3, we have the restricted view. So you can give that out to anybody, and it allows them to see the current checkouts. They can't see any of the other usage reports. So the history graphs, that's the first one I showed you. Yeah, the 7-day version of that is very useful. I mean, when you do 30, 90 days, it starts to get really, really busy, and I don't know how much makes sense unless you start taking, display items off to make it easier to read the graph. But certainly a 7-day feature graph would be useful to management, just to see how many times you're hitting max, how close are you to capacity. That's what that report's all about. And the heat maps, I think, are mostly useful to the engineers. And again, stick to the 7-day, maybe a 30-day, but I wouldn't go beyond 30 days for your heat maps. The user details, again, this is everybody that used, a list of everybody that used the product in a given period of time. Again, that's a useful report for management. And again, that could be a 7-day or a 30-day on-demand report. If it's going to be beyond 30 days, then I would set it up as batch. The averages report, again, is a management style report. And again, same thing, 7-day, 30-day is fine as a on-demand report. But if you want to go extended periods, then I would suggest do it as a batch. So these are the on-demand reports. The best batch reports, again, batch reports are mostly just for management. I can't imagine that engineers are going to want to see a batch report, but they might. You might find one that does. So, but in any event, user details report, monthly or quarterly, makes a good batch report. Group usage, if it's applicable, I have a little note here. If it's applicable, you're going to want to see those group use reports weekly, monthly, or quarterly as a batch report. Concurrent use, you could do concurrent use as a on-demand report, but I didn't put it there because I think it's more useful only when you're coming up to renewal time. And you might want to do these concurrent use reports monthly or quarterly. Denials, again, if it's applicable, if you're tracking denials, it's important to see denials weekly, monthly, quarterly. Zero use, again, really is useful before renewal. And again, that makes an excellent monthly or quarterly batch report. Averages report, same thing. That could be weekly, monthly, or quarterly. I think we even showed that up here. Some of these reports could be done either on demand or batch. Averages could be weekly, monthly, quarterly. Combined reports, if applicable, again, remember the combined reports show you usage across license servers. Same tool, multiple license servers. This is an important report if it's applicable. And I would suggest the best delivery method on this is batch to management. And this will help also. One thing that the combined feature report can show you is if you have multiple servers, you've got different quantities on different servers. This might help you decide if you need to move licenses from one server to another. So you're going to want to look at this as well prior to remix. So it's either your renewal date or your remix date. Comprehensive reports, any of the comprehensive reports would be useful. Cross tags, multiple graph sets. That's the new one. That also could be very useful monthly or quarterly. And then selected features by tag. That's that set of graphs or tables for all features or selected features at a given tag. Also a very useful weekly or monthly batch report. So I went through this pretty quick. I apologize if I lost some of you. This will be recorded. It will be posted up on our website under training videos within the day or so. And along with the PowerPoint slides. If you have questions, you can feel free to contact me at info@teameda.com or ghaas@teameda.com, and I'll try to answer your questions. Our next best practices webinar has to do with setting up denials and alerts. And there's some new alerts that we've added. So we're going to talk about setting up denials, all the alerts, and we'll cover a little more on batch reports. It's different for different types of reports. So we'll cover those three things in our next best practices webinar. And that's 2 weeks from today, November 18th.